everyone! I have a little helper next to me, so if you hear some squeaks then it is Marnie, she's right next to me. There's a Channel Mum topic this month all about mental health as a mum and looking after your mental health as a mum and sharing experiences and your own personal stories, and I've just watched a few of them and some of them struck a chord with me so much that I went out for a walk, and I've just been thinking about my own story and what I wanted to share. As you'll probably know, Channel Mum has topics every month that they cover, and as sponsored vloggers we can choose topics to participate in and to make videos on ourselves on our own channels. And when this topic came up, I wasn't sure what to talk about because, in all honesty, I've never considered myself somebody who has had any struggles with mental health as a mum, really. But when I was watching some of the others, yes, you can have a chat in a sec if you like, it really hit me that these things, I don't want to call them problems because that's such a loaded word, isn't it? Mental health problem, but these issues come in all shapes and sizes to mums of all shapes and sizes, and all different people experience things in different ways. And I was always very conscious not to talk about something that others might think, well, you know, that's not a mental health issue. But what I realised when I was watching everybody else's videos is that by sharing our experiences, however big or small they may feel to you or to the person watching, it is helpful to hear how other people feel and to hear how other people cope with sort of day-to-day mum life, and just to share. I think sharing and talking and being more open is something that I'm getting a lot better at as I get older, and it's something that is so important. Maybe some of you will relate and it might help you, but more than that, I'm hoping that you might actually be able to help me. If you feel the same way, I would absolutely love you to comment below, or if it's a different issue for you or something you feel differently, but you know, you want to share your story anyway, then please comment below, because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're on your own and you're the only one that feels that way. And I think for so long, we're talking, you know, years and years and years, I've never talked about it. I occasionally talk about it to my husband, but he's the only one that I've ever really let my kind of insecurities out to, and he's not like me in that sense, he's very different, but he does get it and he does listen. And I talk to you too, Squeaky. So one of the videos that really stood out to me was Katie from Mummy Daddy Me, and I think I just sat and watched her and I felt myself getting quite emotional because it could have been me talking about the same things. I 100% relate to her video. I'm sure you will all have seen it, but I will link it below just in case you haven't had a chance to watch it yet. And she talks a lot about her anxiety and as a mum and what triggers it for her, and there is certainly, bless you, and so much of what she said struck a chord with me. I would never have said that I suffer with anxiety. I think I need to rewind. Okay, I'll go back a few years, and I've always been a very anxious person. I would never have labelled it anxiety or said I suffer with anxiety, but I know within myself that I've always been a very anxious person. As a small child, some of my earliest memories are of, and I don't know where this came from, but I remember vividly being in my bedroom, and I'd been obviously put to bed and tucked in and all the rest of it, and I woke up an hour later maybe and couldn't get myself back to sleep. So I went looking for my mum or dad in the house, and they weren't there. And it turns out they were actually sat in the garden having a glass of wine. It must have been summer, and they was, you know, just in the garden. But I didn't think to look out there because I didn't normally wake up after I'd gone to bed and go looking for them, so it just didn't dawn on me. And I was hysterical. By the time I can't remember if I went out there or they came into me, but whatever happened in between me waking up and then, I'd got myself into such a state. I thought they'd left, I thought they'd just run away and left me, and this kind of thing happened quite a lot. I remember my dad taking me to the petrol station in the car with him and him nipping in to pay, and because of the way the car was parked, I couldn't see him inside the stores. He was paying for the petrol and he must have been gone minutes, if that, and by the time he came back I was hysterical. I thought he'd gone out the back door of the petrol station and left me. So I don't know where these issues came from, but they clearly, I was very anxious as a child, let's put it that way. And those are some memories that really stick with me, more so than a lot of other memories. That's awful, isn't it? But I can vividly remember those things. And as I've got older, I'm still very much like that. I think I've spoken about this before on one of my videos, but if my husband is in work and I suddenly feel like I need to talk to him, or I haven't spoken to him all day, or if he's out on a run even and I can't get hold of him, my brain will take me to the worst possible scenario of where he is and what might have happened, rather than, and he thinks, you know, he makes fun of me a little bit for it in the nicest possible way, because he's just like, wait, why does your brain go from sort of 0 to 60 in like just like that? In my mind he is like hurt, injured or worse, and I can't find him, I don't know where he is, and my brain just runs away with me. And as a mum, I'm the same. Katie spoke in her video about one of her big triggers for her anxiety is if her kids, she doesn't like her children to go on transport or with people in the car or without her, and that is a massive thing for me as well, to the point where I've had relatives that have offered to take them out for the day, and I haven't wanted them to go because I don't like the thought of them being in the car with her and with that particular, it's not that particular relative, that sounds awful. I don't like the thought of them going somewhere without me. And school trips, I fret about school trips and coach trips for weeks before they happen, and when they're out on the school trip I'm checking, this is so embarrassing. You see, saying it out loud is so embarrassing, but I check traffic reports to check that, you know, there'd be no accidents on the road. I am a nightmare, and the school has started sending texts when they arrive at their destination to say, you know, year 4 have arrived, they're having a great time. That is the greatest idea ever in my book. I'm so grateful that they do that, because it just takes my mind off it. Otherwise I will worry about them all day. So there's that element, the sort of anxiety, and I wouldn't go so far as to say panic, bless you. I've never had, ooh, I've gone really washed out, haven't I? Sorry, I've just adjusted my settings because I caught sight of myself in the viewfinder and I looked really washed out, so sorry if through all of that I've looked really like Casper, so hopefully that's better. Where was I? So there's that element of things in terms of anxiety and feeling very anxious about things, particularly as a mum, and I wouldn't go so far as to say panic, because I've never actually experienced a panic attack, but when people talk about their experiences of a panic attack, it sounds relatable to me. When I'm feeling like that, I get very short of breath. I can feel it kind of almost rising from like my gut up. I can kind of feel the panic kind of rise, and I get very distracted, snappy to other people who might be around me. I feel like I can't focus on anything, but at the same time I need to focus on something to distract myself. It's kind of that's how I feel. So I never had a panic attack, but I would imagine it's sort of similar. Maybe not, I'm not sure. Interwoven with that is the sort of feeling of isolation as a mum, and I've talked about that before. In fact, lots of channel mum vloggers have talked about that before, so if you want to sort of watch more videos on the subject, then do check out the channel mum page. I'll link it below with dozens and dozens of videos on the same sort of thing. But I would say I'm a bit of a loner. I am quite introverted in a lot of ways, and I think I've always been a bit like that. It's so complex, isn't it? As a younger adult, I was very sociable, and when I was in uni I had a big group of friends and I loved going out, and I was always surrounded by people and loved it. Never, you know, never questioned it, never thought twice. That was just the stage of my life that I was in, and I loved it, and that was that. And very similarly, in my first maybe 1 or 2 jobs after leaving uni, I was very much the same. Had very sociable. I worked in an ad agency in the PR department, and I loved all the sort of socialising and going out with my colleagues and things like that. But I've always had this sort of underlying, sorry, she's really squeaky in the background. If you kind of missed me saying at the beginning, Marnie is down here, she's kicking around and getting really excited, so that's what the noise is. But there was always this underlying part of me that was quite awkward, socially awkward, shall we say. I always felt uncomfortable around people that I didn't know really well. Sort of good friends and people I've known for years, and family obviously, no problem at all. But people that I wanted to get along with, and people I wanted to impress, like colleagues and managers and things like that, even though on the surface of it I could keep myself together and be professional and talk the talk, inside I was like, you know, duck's legs under the water, paddling at 90 miles an hour. And that has always been, well, certainly since I left university and to now, still, that has always been an issue of mine. And I think because of that, I don't like feeling like that. I don't like feeling uncomfortable and out of, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, just uncomfortable. Yeah, I guess that is the word I'm looking for. I don't like feeling uncomfortable. So I think slowly over time, I've become more and more introverted, and I tend to avoid situations like that. But that is a vicious circle, and that's something I would say in the last 3 or 4 years, I've realised that that's not healthy, that's not helpful, and ultimately I have to push myself out of my comfort zone, say yes to things, do things more, you know, meet new people, and be braver when it comes to putting myself out there. And even if I stumble over my words and I say the wrong thing, and I've done that more often than I care to remember, it doesn't matter. Everyone gets nervous and awkward sometimes, you know, most people anyway, and it's okay. People aren't going to judge you and dismiss you and not want to be your friend just because you said something stupid. And if they do, then they're not worth kind of worrying about anyway. I think those feelings of kind of awkwardness and feeling a bit isolated kind of came to a head when my dad died. He passed away 8 years ago, and my daughter Merrin was only 1 year old when he died, and I'm always trying to kind of unpick this as I'm talking to you, because I've never really delved that deeply into it myself. I've never really thought about it in any great depth. I'm somebody who puts things in boxes. If I'm like, when my dad died, I put that in a box and closed the lid, and that was that. I didn't pull myself together. I only open that box and talk about the contents of that box when it suits me, and only to Dan, really, my husband. So yes, I do that with lots of things. If something's bothering me, I will put it in a box, file it away, and I'll deal with it when I want to deal with it. And I think I'd just gone through, that sounds dramatic. I'd just had 2 pregnancies back to back. I had Dylan, and then was pregnant again within 5 months, and then had Merrin, and she was a year old, so I hadn't just gone through that pregnancy. But I feel like my hormones were all over the place, and I definitely felt quite low after Dylan was born, because we lived somewhere where I didn't know that many people, and I don't know, I just wasn't in the best place then. And we'd moved back to my hometown then at that point. We'd been there a year or so, and then my dad passed away, and I packed it away in my brain. And I think since then I've never excuse me. See, this is what gets me through, and I think this is what gets most mums through most days when you're feeling a bit rubbish, is kids, they distract you from it, don't they? And you just kind of get on with it for their sake, and they're funny and they're happy and they're, you know, so much fun to be around, and that's what kind of has got me through and has kind of distracted me from any feelings of feeling isolated or down or anxious about things, because they're just so ridiculously cute. Anyway, where was I? So yes, after my dad died, I obviously was not in a great place, but I think thinking about it now, that happening has kind of triggered a lot of anxiety in me, or magnified a lot of anxiety in me. So those feelings of being awkward socially and sort of not wanting to put myself out there to meet new people and to kind of be vulnerable, I guess, those feelings felt so much greater after he died. I think it was such a massive defining moment in my life, and I don't think I've ever really come to terms with it. And even though it is 8 years ago, it was 8 years ago now, I think because of the way I choose to deal with things sometimes, that doesn't help. And I don't even really know where I'm going with this. I'm so sorry if you're bored. I want to click off the video. I'm just trying to kind of make sense of it myself, I guess. Then I often feel like I'm kind of a bit numb, a bit detached from my feelings. I don't open up very easily. This is like really out of character for me. I wouldn't normally talk to anyone apart from Dan about these kinds of things, but I think it's helpful. I think it's healthy, and I want to be more open. I think I push people away, and I keep people at arm's length, and I've never really understood why I do it. I still don't understand why I do it, really, even talking about it out loud. But it kind of makes sense if I think about it, and now that I am talking, it makes sense. Like when my dad passed away, I had 2 young children, both under the age of 3, and that was tough, and then this happened, and that was really tough, and yeah, it was just a lot going on. And I think I'm very much a person that says, I'm fine, I can cope, and just get on with it. That's who I am. I just get on with things. I don't like to usually overthink or overtalk things, and I think that's part of the problem. I have pushed people away. I have pushed, not literally, but like metaphorically, I have pushed people away over the last, since he died. I think it must be something to do with not wanting to kind of lose people. I don't know, I could be overthinking it, but I feel like I've kind of closed in on myself a little bit, just me and my sort of family unit. I've kind of, they are my everything, and anything outside of that I don't give enough thought to, probably, and I feel awful about it. I'm not blasé about it. It really bothers me. I wish I could not do that, but I find it really difficult to let people in that that aren't already in, that aren't already like my family, my husband, my kids. I find it hard to connect on that sort of level. So then when it comes to making mum friends and keeping those relationships going and being a good friend, you know, I struggle with that. But I don't want to be that person. I want to get better at it, and that's part of why I'm actually sitting down and talking about this now. Is I'm not comfortable doing this. I would never have sort of planned to do this. It's only because I've watched those videos today and it's all kind of bubbled up inside me, and I thought, right, if I'm ever going to talk about it, if I'm ever going to do it and contribute towards this topic and this kind of channel mum movement, and it is a movement. It is so important. We need to talk. Mums need to talk. We need to identify and relate to each other and feel like we're not alone and we're not weird or, you know, difficult or whatever you feel inside. And I've always felt that those things are weaknesses and not good at admitting or talking about what I think are my weaknesses, but they're not weaknesses. They're just part of who you are and part of who I am, and I need to learn to understand that part of me and kind of manage it and recognize the things I can improve on and just become a better version of me, because isn't that what we all want to do anyway? This has been a really, really rambly video, I'm sure, and I hope if you have watched to the end that either if you recognise some of these things in yourself, and I just hope it's been helpful in some way, but more than anything else, I would absolutely love to hear from you if you feel the same or similarly, or if you did and you feel much better now, or just your experiences. I'd love to hear them. So please comment below and I will absolutely reply, and perhaps we can have a little chat in the comment section. I'm gonna go and give my little lady a big cuddle. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next one.